So we come to my favorite passage. Once I get to it. Jesus unrolled the scroll and found the passage where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor." In other places, in other translations, that's translated good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to captives, recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim a year acceptable to the Lord. If there was a heart of the gospel, it's right there. It's this radical freedom. It's a radical turning upside down of expectations and of the order of society. And I'm going to say it's all about a Christian view of karma. If you're oppressed, things will get better. It also speaks to the notion that everything changes. If you're imprisoned, you can only be imprisoned, first of all, for a certain period of time, even if it's until you die, and then you're free. But also, you can only be really fully imprisoned if you allow yourself to be. That being captured and held captive in the body is different from being held captive in the spirit. If you doubt that, look at the people throughout history who have sought out captivity. The desert fathers and mothers, who, while they could have walked away, went out into the desert and lived in something called a cell. Contemplative monks and nuns ever since then. Cloistered folk who have withdrawn from society and agreed to be what seems to a lot of us imprisoned inside this building in a room, or if they have a vow of silence, they don't even talk. And all of it becomes important because it points out, in a way that Paul did, but on a slightly different topic, they're pointing out the same thing. And that is that external circumstance means nothing. That the good news of Jesus is that things don't have to be the way they are, but also that sometimes the way we look at things is one-sided. The Jewish people had been conquered twice, or 1.5 times, because the first time they only got half of the kingdom. And they thought that being in their country, in their city, was the only way to be close to God. And so when they were dispersed, they thought they were now distant from God. And it was all over. And it had been done in a way that made no sense to them, because the rich people, who must be God's favorite, right, were carried off, and the poor people, who God must have hated, were left in the town where God was thought to dwell. And yet they came back. The early Christian community started and was persecuted, and they got into those very human fights about who's better, who's bigger, who lasts longer, who goes farther. And Paul came to say that's not the point. You're looking at externals. Jesus comes and quotes this passage from Isaiah that seems to make no sense at all. Because the minute he announces that all of a sudden the jail doors don't fly open, and the poor aren't wealthy, but that's an external condition. To be free is to allow God to dwell in your heart. To do that, we need to drop those external manifestations of ego that make us want to say, I'm better. I can speak in tongues. Send me your check, you'll get 10 times back. Right? Rather, it's a radical openness to that Spirit of God dwelling in you. And when you're able to achieve that, even in small part, and it comes in small part, a little bit here, you get a glimpse of it. A little bit there, you get a glimpse of it. Gradually, hopefully, you get more and more glimpses. It's all about forgetting the externals and opening up in the inside. And in that process, what goes on outside Doesn't matter anymore. Those who have found union with God that the church recognizes very often as saints. The pictures are around us, both recognized and unrecognized in here. And scores of others, and even scores more who aren't recognized. We're able to open in their heart to God, who is love. To God, who shouts for liberty and freedom and the end of oppression. But it all starts right here in each and every one of us. And the more we're able to do that, the more we're able to give it to others and say what Jesus said. That we've come to proclaim good news. And that liberty and freedom and in fact anything is possible if only we'll open our hearts.
Amen.